been notified of an investigation? And the answer, as I said yesterday, is no. The situation on Friday that created the press coverage over the weekend was in response to a Washington Post story that had 5 anonymous sources.
Yeah.
So in one sense, could you imagine if the president did have the opportunity to respond?
And that's the president's personal lawyer. He's saying that nobody has ever notified the president that he's under investigation.
The president's team playing defense, all because of a single tweet where the president said, and I quote, "I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director." Witch hunt. If only he had listened to Neil, right? Remember this?
Mr. President, it's not the fake news media that's your problem. It's you. It's not just your tweeting, it's your scapegoating. It's your refusal to see that sometimes you're the one who's feeding your own beast.
Bottom line here, you got a whole lot of confusion over this case. So should the president just drop the tweets altogether? Or should he keep them going because that's how he connects with his base and gets out his message? I'm joined right now with their thoughts, Robin Byra, Ashley Hayek, and Madison Giassotto. Good to have you all here. Madison, you like the tweeting. I know you like the tweeting. You say it helps him to connect with his peeps, but doesn't it get him in a little trouble along the way?
You know, when we look at this tweet specifically, I think this tweet was meant to be satirical and really bring light to the ridiculousness of the fact that the president of the United States could be put under investigation for taking the advice of the same exact person that could potentially be investigating him. I think this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But when we go back to the general idea of whether the president should be tweeting, I think a lot of people always say, you know, yes, he should be tweeting because this is a direct line of communication between him and the American people. True, but I think we need to take it one step further in saying that we're in the 21st century, and I think part of this comes with increased technology and use of social media. And I would encourage not only our president, but all of our political leaders to continue to advance with the times and stop living in the past. I think social media is going to be an integral part of politics moving forward, and I think our politicians should be using this.
I hear you on a lot of this. I think one of the challenges with Twitter is that it's so short, right? You get 140 characters, and you got to get it all into that. Or maybe you can have a string of tweets, but the challenge here, Ashley, is that when you're doing things in such a brief, with such brevity, you're not able to convey the nuance, right, of a particular discussion point. And I think in this particular case, he might have been just responding to the Washington Post. Sort of, it was like, if I am under investigation, I shouldn't be because there's no crime here. But instead, in that spur-of-the-moment we got a very different kind of feel, which basically suggested to the world that he was under investigation.
Well, it's 140 characters, and you can't hear tone in tweets. Basically, I have to agree. I'm glad that our president. I'm glad our president uses Twitter. I'm sure what drives most, political people nuts is that they're used to being able to control the social media message and keep their candidate, their client on message, and this president wants to talk to his base. For example, the travel ban. He uses the term ban. Now, it's up to the Supreme Court to determine whether or not it's legal. However, his base wants a ban, and that's why he was put into office, is because he's not following within the norms, the typical, the normal political rhetoric and being politically correct, and he's willing to put himself out there, and quite frankly, mainstream media just eats it up every time.
But the problem is, Robin, he's putting himself out there, and I agree with Madison and Ashley in that it's good to connect to the base, and the base wants to hear certain things, but the flip side of this is you've got a rabid left right now who wants to find him guilty of something somehow, some way. And is he running the risk of providing them unintentionally with ammunition?
Absolutely, Trish. We just heard from Neil. I'm sorry, was that meant for me? We just heard from Neil Cavuto that the president is his own worst enemy. I've got one of my favorite tweets that I can agree with is the one from August 1st of 2014, where he says, if you read my last number of tweets, only one opinion can be formed, that our president and therefore leader is grossly incompetent. While reading from his most recent tweets, I tend to agree with that statement. So yes, I do think that he is his own worst enemy. And, time and time again, we're told one thing, and then it turns out, they'll trot the cleanup crew afterward to come in and say that the president, that's not what he intended to say. That he granted it's only 140 characters, but they'll put out these people and say, that's not how you should interpret
and everybody
this.
says, oh gosh, if only he hadn't tweeted that. Madison, if you were advising him right now, if you were working in the Oval Office, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to keep tweeting because, like I said before, this is not only a way for him to connect, but this is also a way for him to stay in the future and continue to advance. Keep in mind that last year was the first time that millennials were able to vote in as large of numbers as baby boomers in the older generation. So the future is in the hands of millennials, and millennials are on Twitter, millennials are on Facebook. And the reality is, yes, Facebook is a short
would you say, hey,
social media
maybe do that, but let's maybe edit them a little bit, Ashley? Maybe put them through another set of eyes first so that we don't land in any hot water that we shouldn't be landing in?
I don't think so. I think he needs to keep his base focused. He's motivating people to continue to support him. And you know what? If the left ones keep attacking him, they'll attack him over anything at this point. That's very, very clear. So keep it coming, keep it going, and keep the conversation strong.
I keep saying this. He has single-handedly made Twitter relevant, everyone. You gotta be on Twitter if you want to know what the president's thinking. Thanks so much, the whole team. Appreciate you being here. All right, from the White House to